Emergency evacuation. Emergency evacuation is the urgent abandonment of an aircraft utilizing all usable exits. An in-flight fire, smoke or fume emergency will be dealt with as aggressively as possible by the crew, and, if appropriate, an immediate diversion to landing will be initiated. If the emergency is not secured, once on the ground, the most appropriate course of action is to remove the passengers and crew from the risk as a precautionary measure. Likewise, in the event of an uncontrolled engine or airframe fire during ground operations, an aircraft crash on a takeoff or landing, or any other situation that results in fire or structural failure, the best defense available is an immediate evacuation of the aircraft. Failure to evacuate the aircraft in a timely manner may lead to the death or injury of crew and passengers. Also, failure to evacuate an aircraft in an orderly and safe manner may also lead to injuries to passengers. Common evacuations issues. Common safety deficiencies during the evacuation process are often associated with communications, exit operation, passenger preparedness for evacuations, and the presence of fire, smoke, and toxic fumes. Fire, smoke and fumes. The presence of fire, smoke, and/or toxic fumes present the greatest risk to a successful evacuation by restricting visibility, limiting communications, reducing the number of available exits, affecting passenger behavior, and decreasing occupants' mental and physical capacities. Fire, smoke, and/or toxic fumes are identified as a serious hazard during the evacuations. Delays. As much as a minute can pass before the flight or cabin crew initiates the evacuation. This is a very long time for passengers to endure if it is obvious that an emergency situation exists. On the other hand, if the emergency is not obvious, passengers may revert to their routine and start opening the overhead bins to retrieve their luggage. This action will be very difficult to prevent when the cabin crew members are required to remain at their stations near the emergency exits. Communication. In an emergency evacuation, effective communications among the crew members and with the passengers are essential for a timely, orderly, effective response. The communication could be hindered by inoperative public address (PA) systems. The cabin crew and/or passengers are unable to hear the initial evacuation command and/or subsequent directions. PA systems could be rendered inoperable or unintentionally switched off during evacuations. Inadequate crew communication. Non-effective communication between the cabin and the flight deck could result in a significant delay of the evacuation. Exit and slide operation. Problems in operating emergency exits and deploying emergency slides delayed many evacuations, potentially compromising the success of the evacuation. Cabin crew or passengers could experience difficulty operating emergency exit doors. Passenger preparedness. Passengers' lack of preparedness to act appropriately or adverse behavior during an evacuation is a serious issue during many evacuations. Passengers might not perceive the danger they are in and therefore could act in an inappropriate manner, for example, being slow to respond to cabin crew instructions, looking for friends and relatives, or even trying to open overhead compartment storage to retrieve luggage. Emergency briefings. As part of their pre-departure duties, the cabin crew will provide a safety briefing to passengers which will include the processes of emergency evacuation of the aircraft. This briefing will refer passengers to their individual safety briefing cards, but will always include pointing out exit locations and floor path lighting for particular use in poor visibility. The briefing will advise on the availability of evacuation slides at exits and may give instructions on how to open exits. Passengers seated in emergency exit rows at overwing exits, where no cabin crew are located, may be individually briefed on how to open these in the event of an emergency. If an airborne emergency occurs which makes an evacuation on landing likely, then the cabin crew will provide more detailed instructions if the time available permits. Emergency exits. Depending upon the aircraft, emergency exits can include normal boarding and service doors, overwing exits, and tail cone exits within the passenger cabin, and cockpit windows or hatches on the flight deck and in freight bays. These may be equipped with boarding stairs, evacuation slides, or emergency egress ropes. Evacuation slides. An evacuation slide is an inflatable device which facilitates the rapid evacuation of an aircraft. Slides are required on all passenger-carrying aircraft, where the door sill height, measured as the normal height above ground level, is such that able-bodied passengers would be unable to jump or step down from the exit without a significant risk of injury. This has been interpreted in regulatory requirements that slides must be installed at all aircraft doors, where the floor is 1.8 meters, 6 feet, or more above the ground. Slides are also required on overwing exits, when the height of the wing above the ground, with the flaps fully extended, exceeds the maximum certified distance, or where an evacuation route ahead of the wing is intended. Some slides are also designed to serve as rafts when detached from the aircraft in the event of a landing on water. In the case of overwing exits, no slide is required, providing the escape route and utilizes the flap surface and the height of the ground from the trailing edge of the flap is less than 6 feet. Cabin crew duties. Evacuation is normally ordered by the captain. However, if communication with the flight crew is not possible, and the situation in the cabin is judged by the senior cabin crew member to be incompatible with any delay, then they are trained to make the evacuation order themselves once the aircraft has come to a complete stop. In these circumstances, they are responsible for assessing immediate dangers such as external fire or engines still running before any exit is opened. Cabin crew supervising exits must also secure the exit until the slide, if the exit is so equipped, inflates and block the exit from use in the event of a slide malfunction. They are also expected to motivate passengers using appropriate shouted commands and, if necessary, physical action, to exit quickly and to leave behind personal possessions, especially items in overhead lockers or under seats. Normally, the cabin crew will be the last to leave their exit. However, in practice, they are trained to remain on board only to the point when they believe that, by staying any longer, they are putting their own lives at risk. Once they are out of the aircraft, they are trained to assist in moving passengers away from the aircraft to a position where they can be safely grouped together. Summary. To counteract every emergency situation, each aircraft is provided with appropriate emergency equipment. The number of such exits depends on the passenger carrying capacity of the aircraft and varies directly in proportion to the same. All overseas flights are to carry life jackets on a mandatory basis. Emergency evacuation is the urgent abandonment of an aircraft utilizing all usable exits. An evacuation slide is an inflatable device which facilitates the rapid evacuation of an aircraft.